All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for us to begin our conversation on the new Finance Act signed by Mr. President on the 13th of this month. What are the implications? KPMG, I was able to put some things together, so we will be reviewing it today in case you don't understand what we're talking about, or in case you don't even know where you will start, or in case you just hear about it, but you don't know what to do, you don't know how it affects you. We'll be discussing that today. Ayo Salami, the tax partner at KPMG, is joining me from Lagos via Skype. Hello, Ayo. Welcome to the program. Hello, Ayo. Welcome to the program. Hello, Mr. Salami. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Nancy. Good morning.
Good morning. How is Lagos today?
Lagos is fantastic. We're enjoying the weather.
Wow, that's fantastic. In Abuja here is a bit hot, very hot. Sometimes in the night it will be very cold, but in the afternoon, very hot, you know. But welcome to the program. Now, let's talk about this Finance Act. I did read your report, the KPMG report. I saw you did something, that's your team, KPMG. I put together some stuff about the Finance Act. I stumbled on it, so I went through it. And like I said earlier on the program, last week I did talk about this Finance Act. In fact, we did 2 shows on it. But I realized that a lot of people still do not understand how it will work. The major headline there was the 7.5% VAT, which we will begin to pay. But let me start by asking you to tell Nigerians what the general implications of this Finance Act is all about.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I think I need to start this way. The passage of the Act itself is a significant milestone for Nigeria, and I think it's a welcome development. Personally, it is instructive for 2 reasons. First, since return to democratic rule in 1999, this is the first time we have a government that has articulated the way it intends to generate money to fund the budget. What we used to have in the past are budget pronouncements without any legal document to support how government will generate money to fund those budgets. So for me, it is instructive. Secondly, it is also the first time in a while that we're having changes to the tax laws to align them with the current realities. You then also realize that except those laws are aligned, which of course what the Finance Act tends to do by trying to weed out all those provisions that are redundant, trying to reconcile those provisions that are conflicting, and of course try to revise those provisions that are out of date in line with realities. So for me, it is instructive, and I believe that the government should be commended. If the Act is implemented to the letter, I believe strongly that very soon Nigeria would begin to achieve a better tax to GDP ratio, which currently is a 46%. Thank you.
Okay. You talked about being a milestone. I agreed, because I think this is the first time since we returned to democracy that this has been done. A budget is accompanied with a finance bill. But having said that, how do you think that this new act, this new Finance Act, seeks to address the revenue gap? Because if we take a look, for example, the 7.5 increase that's the 7.5% VAT, which Nigerians will be paying now, the federal government will just be getting, I think, about 15% of that. The 85% will be shared between states and local governments. So will it necessarily address the revenue challenge which Nigeria is facing right now?
Thank you very much, Nancy. Not necessarily so, but I guess it has an impact. If you look at the entire provisions of the Finance Act, there are other provisions that also seek to generate more revenue for government beyond the VAT Act, beyond the VAT itself. Focusing on VAT, if you observe, the Act actually, in a way, tries to broaden the scope of the VAT itself. For instance, you then have a situation where intangibles or incorporeal property which hitherto were exempt from VAT, have now been brought into the VAT net. So by extending the scope and then increasing the rates, the expectation is that government will definitely generate more revenue from that angle. And of course, don't also forget, it is in line with the policy thrust of the national tax policy, which encourages government to begin to refocus its tax revenue generation efforts towards indirect tax. For obvious reasons, it is less cumbersome, it's more efficient, and of course, ultimately, it's a way to generate more revenue for government.
Now, when you talk about tax, perhaps a lot of people will not want to pay tax ordinarily. And there's this peculiarity in Nigeria in the sense that one will say, why am I paying taxes? Because I've not seen what the government has done with the taxes that I've paid. So a lot more people are not encouraged. How do you think that Nigerians would react to this new Finance Act? The Finance Act, which has impact for oil and gas, for capital markets, for construction, even for the consumers market and all of that. How do you think we will all react to this?
First of all, I think it is instructive to note that payment of tax is a civic responsibility. It is incumbent on all taxable payer or taxable person to pay the appropriate tax. Now, speaking specifically to the provisions of the Finance Act, which of course cuts across both direct and indirect taxes, personally, I believe strongly that if those provisions are administered better, definitely government will be better off for it, the economy will be better off for it, and even the citizens will enjoy the benefits of that act. And I can tell you very quickly that even though the VAT rate has been increased, there are provisions in that Finance Act which also tries to provide palliatives for the taxpayer. For instance, small and medium scale businesses, which hitherto were paying taxes. If a small scale business whose turnover is 25 million naira and below, you are completely exempted from income tax. And then you also relieve of the filing obligations with respect to value-added tax by also completely exempting you from charging VAT, from filing returns, and from registration of VAT purposes. So in a way, even though we have a 50% increment in the rate, the palliatives provided in that law will seek to minimize the impact on ordinary Nigerians and citizens. Again, you also look at the expansion of the VAT exempt list, which now covers a bit more items than what we either have before now. You have other food items like fish, cereals, and the rest, which of course, most of which are common staple food for Nigerians. So by expanding the VAT exempt list, definitely more Nigerians, citizens will benefit from it, while the corporates with large revenue footprints will definitely pay more to the government coffers. So on the balance, I think it's a good omen. I think Nigerians should be happy about it. And like I said earlier on, it is a significant landmark for this government.
Now, this is where it gets tricky. And this is where I've seen some misunderstanding about the Finance Act. It's good for small businesses in the sense of micro small businesses in the sense that you have a turnover of about 25 million naira below, you would not pay company income tax, which you used to pay before, which was 30% before, but now you would not pay. Let me break it down so that, let me break it down. Let me give an example. If I go into a salon, okay, let me say if I go into a spa and I go in there, I finish my services and I'm to pay, will that salon charge me 7.5% VAT? Because a lot of people have been asking that question. You see, small businesses that have 25 million turnover are not supposed to pay company income tax. Are they supposed to charge VAT of 7.5% for those services? I'm just taking this as an example because most small businesses don't even understand this.
Yeah, you're right, Nancy, and I think that's where, like you said, it gets a bit tricky.
Yeah.
And I believe strongly that the FRS will come out with guidelines on how to implement this. But clearly, for a salon, I doubt whether a salon, the way you've described it, will probably have turnover exceeding 25 million naira in a year. So expectedly, we don't expect such businesses to put VAT on their invoices. However, I suppose it's going to be a difficult call for the customer to begin to challenge the salon whether its turnover exceeds 25 million naira for it to validly put VAT on that invoice. So again, I think we need to await the FRS to roll out the regulations or modalities for implementation of that provision, and then how that then cascade to the ordinary man on the street.
You know, it's very, very fundamental, because we will need that clarification, because a lot of small businesses, they will know, okay, fine, I'm not supposed to pay CIT because my turnover is below 25 million naira, but they can still be charging their customers VAT, and their customers may be paying that. Do you understand what I'm saying? In terms of, they were like, oh, government has increased tax now, you know, so.
Well, I do understand your predicament, but I think if you look at the VAT Act itself, there are provisions to the effect that if you do charge the VAT, then you have an obligation to remit. So if a small business feels strongly that it could charge the VAT, even though its turnover is below 25 million naira, then the expectation is that such amount should be remitted to the tax authorities. So I guess it's not a question of, do I want to take advantage of the provision of the law, or I still want to continue in my old ways, which of course again means you have to then begin to continue to file returns and render those returns to the FRS. And I guess if you look at the entire import of the Act, which is to ease the ease of doing business agenda of the government, I thought the appropriate thing to do for such small businesses is to discontinue the charging of VAT, provided that the turnover is still below the threshold instituted by the Act.
Okay, let's take a look at the larger consumers markets. What do you think will be the implication? Apart from what you've said, are there other implications? We know there are VAT exempt products like food items, sanitary towels, some basic commodities, even pharmaceutical products and all of that. But are there larger implications for the consumers market?
Absolutely, Nancy. The way I would like to answer that question is this. If you look at the report of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria a few days back, it did indicate that the manufacturing output of Nigeria for the first half of 2019, January to June, actually fell compared to the figures in the corresponding period in 2018. Obviously, we just recovered from recession just a few years back, and the economy is still struggling. Those statistics were also corroborated by those from the CBN, which essentially says that the Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, which is a measure of activities in the manufacturing sector, actually stagnated between January and June last year and started to pick up towards the end of the year. So the point to all of this is that we have a struggling economy, and the government thought to itself, how do I incentivize and stimulate the economy? And that's why we have some of those provisions in the Finance Act with particular reference to the consumer and industrial market. Now, I'll speak to 2 or 3 of them very quickly. The first is, again, like we said, the ample provisions regarding SMEs, where, for instance, you are exempted from income tax, you are exempted from value-added tax, and the whole of this is to put more funds in the hands of these SMEs so that they can expand and then employ more youths. You know, unemployment is a problem in Nigeria. So with that, the government thought that could incentivize the small businesses, have more money with them, and then expand their business, increase the employment and so forth. The other point I also want to make here is, for instance, the issue around RISCO, that's the Real Estate Investment Trust scheme. Now, what you find is that for some time now, there has been challenged with the housing initiative in Nigeria. In fact, according to the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, Nigeria has a deficit of 22 million housing units. That is huge. And to cover that gap is an expenditure threshold of about $16 billion is needed to cover that on a yearly basis. Now, with REITs, that is the Real Estate Investment Trust Scheme, which under the new Finance Act, there are provisions to the extent that the real investment companies who invest in properties can now be treated as pass-through. In other words, the potential of double taxation on their income, which in a way stifled investment in that sector, is now completely removed. So with that, we expect that foreign capital, private capital, can go into the housing sector under the risk pool, and then basically support the government in blocking the shortage in the housing need. Again, of course, it's also the double tax on their dividends, which under the new Finance Act is being expunged, such that their income is assessed, their dividends they receive is treated as a pass-through, such that only the beneficiary then get taxed on that dividend. So those two key provisions are important, and they are very they represent the land in the CCIM industry. So for me, I think those two provisions will help in supporting the government to bridge the housing gap. Of course, don't also forget that an aspect of this is with respect to the agricultural industry. Under that Finance Act, you have a situation where companies engaged in agricultural production and then enjoy tax benefit for up to 8 years without paying taxes. These were not there before. So for us, I think we expect all these provisions to rejuvenate this consumer market industry to the benefit of Nigerians.
Now, let's talk about the impact on the financial markets, financial services, which perhaps includes banking, of course, which is like #1 in the country. Insurance is a distant cousin in Nigeria. You have perhaps asset management, perhaps other payment and credit solutions. How do you think that this Finance Act would impact this sector, the financial services sector? Let's start from insurance, for example. We do know that penetration of insurance in the country, insurance penetration is very low to GDP, I think about 0.3%, whereby even other African countries are higher. Perhaps Kenya is more than close to 10%, I think. Morocco is over 11 or 12%. So how do you think that this new bill, which the president signed, has now become an act, will impact the financial markets? So you can take them broadly, by insurance, banking, and others.
Very good question, Nancy. Let me just start from where you stopped, the insurance industry. If you look at the structure of that industry to date, that industry has basically stagnated in a way, because you don't find, for instance, the big-time insurance companies globally in Nigeria, only very few of them. But what has caused this? Under the previous tax regime, insurance industry business itself is stifled because they were operating tax laws that are, in a way, detrimental to the growth of that industry. And I'm happy that under this new Finance Act, there are two clear provisions that will seem to redress those anomalies. For instance, the provision for unexpired risk, which used to be benchmarked against some percentages before, to restrict those provisions to certain percentage before, is now been removed. That obnoxious part of our income tax law has been removed and expunged, such that insurance companies can then have full tax deduction for provisions regarding their unexpired risk. The same thing with respect to provision for claims, which is a significant part of their cost. Again, the Finance Act has made provisions to expunge that from the law. So for me, those two provisions are a game changer for the insurance industry. And I see the influx of big-time players into this economy with the potential to ensure those big-time assets and businesses to the benefit of the country. Going to the financial service, the banks in itself, I think the key provision that might probably impact them positively is with respect to microfinance banks, which for now also suffered some kind of VAT on their services. But with the Finance Act, there are clear provisions in that act, which has now exempted the service of microfinance banks from value-added tax and the rest. So for me, these are banks that are close to the people, that are close to the ordinary man on the street. And I think with that, it can assist in extending access to credit to the ordinary man on the street and for small businesses and so on and so forth. And the part of that is that it then increases our capacity to generate more employment, expand the capacity of Nigerians, and make more money and create wealth for Nigerians.
Now, let's still stick a bit with the bank, because that's also where it gets sticky, because the Finance Act imposes a requirement on banks to request tax identification a number that is TIN of a prospective business customer. Where it gets sticky is that some people have started saying, okay, I have an account, a personal account with a bank. Should I go and request for a TIN, which is entirely free too? So for those of you that are getting TIN for your businesses, know that it's free. You're not supposed to be charged for that. That's where it gets sticky. So should I get a TIN on a personalized account, or it should just be a business account? Or the third one is, if Nancy Nnaji is a personalized account, but I'm using it for business, should I have a TIN? I hope you understand what I mean.
I do, Nancy. But I thought, again, there were already regulations in circulation from the CBN to clarify the requirement for TIN, both for individual accounts and for corporate accounts. And I think at some point, this has to be harmonized. And I believe strongly that between the authorities, the CBN, the FRS, and the state board, some kind of harmonization has to happen, such that this doesn't create problems for individuals as well as corporate entities. But overall, I think it's a good thing. It's a way of tracking the transactions of businesses and their owners.
Let's take a look at the impact on the oil and gas industry. What will be the impact? Because there are some changes to the PPA, as a petroleum profit tax, PPT. You know, what impacts are we going to be seeing in that sector? We also know that that sector needs more development than it is having right now, since we discovered crude oil, I think in 1956 in the country. How will this impact that sector?
Thank you very much, Nancy. To answer that question, I will be providing you with some statistics, just to put context to it. In the last 6 years, about $73 billion in foreign direct investment came to African oil and gas space. Only $2 billion of that amount found its way into Nigeria. Egypt, Mozambique, Ghana got a lion's share of that amount. That is scary to me, given that Nigeria is arguably the largest oil producer in Africa. Secondly, if you look at active rig count in the country, active rig count signifies the level of activity in the oil and gas space. In 2012, 2013, at the peak of oil price hike, it was about 37. That number dovetailed to about 6 in 2016 when we had recession. And over time, it has marginally increased, obviously due to the resolution of the cash flow issues with NNPC and its JV partners. Now, this happened when we had no Deep Offshore Amendment Act, where offshore production will be assessed to a minimum of 10% royalty. This statistics happened where we didn't have, as it were, withholding tax on dividend declared by oil companies. Now, you could then imagine, now that we have this Finance Act, which has tended to introduce withholding tax at 10% on profit after tax for oil and gas, oil exploration companies, where we now have the Offshore Amendment Act, which has now introduced a two-tier royalty with a minimum of 10% payable by fields that were hitherto not paying royalty. The implication of all this is that we may potentially be making Nigeria a bit unattractive compared to other oil jurisdictions like Mozambique, Ghana, and Angola. Now, the solution to all of this, in my view, is very simple. All we need to do is for the government to also look at the other side of the equation, beyond revenue generation. And of course, which I support, we need to generate revenue from this industry. We also then need to look at what can the government do to incentivize oil producers to begin to invest in oil exploration and production. As it were, in the last 10 years or so, there hasn't been any significant investment in oil exploration campaign. And the impact of that is that in the next 5 to 10 years, we may begin to witness a reduction, a natural reduction in the production from existing fields. And without new fields coming on board to supplement that, we may begin to also witness a reduction in the planned expected income from royalties and petroleum profit tax. So my message to the government is that we need to also begin to look at how do we incentivize oil producers to also begin to spend more on exploration activities. Of course, it's not all bad. Of course, there is also a provision in the Finance Act which now seeks for gas producers not to seek permission from the Minister of Finance in respect of their loans and take interest deduction on their loans and all of that. That is all good. But like I said, we need to begin to devise strategies to enhance further investment in oil exploration and production, so that 10, 20 years' time, we have that basket of oil assets that can begin to, of course, in a way, supplement current productions that might have been reduced due to natural decline from production from those fields.
Let's talk about another sector, the capital market. The Nigerian capital market, the best performing as we started the new year, started trade. Don't forget that this market has also been struggling a bit. The Nigerian stock market witnessed a loss of about 14.6% last year. Last year, 2019, 14.6%. I think in 2017, the Nigerian stock market was one of the best in the world, 42% return it did post in 2017. So it started on a good footing this year. Let's see how it goes. But this Finance Act, any impact on the capital market? Because that market still needs a lot of retail investors, in my own view, retail investors seeing what is happening instead of the foreign portfolio investors that we see wherever there's like some kind of, addition or an additive outside, they just carry their briefcases and they run, and the stock market falls. So will this Finance Act in any way boost that market?
Thank you, Nancy. I think you're right. In a way, what you said is correct. But I think two main provisions in the Finance Act which impact the capital markets are very, very instructive. The first is the dividends declared by unit trust, right, were basically exposed to double layers of taxation. And I think what the Finance Act has done is to revoke that. In a way, you only pay tax only once on such dividends. And I think it's a right step in the right direction. It's very important. Secondly, it's also, they talk about securities lending. Before now, securities lendings are also were exposed to several layers of taxation, particularly if the players didn't understand how to structure those transactions. And I think what the Finance Act has done again is to remove that the double layers, such that you only pay tax once based on the economic substance of those transactions rather than the legal form. Because if you stick with the legal form, then the chances are very high that you're going to pay double taxation on that transaction. So for me, I think those two key provisions are impactful, and they have the potential of actually making our stock market a bit more robust, and then improve the wealth to the shareholders.
Let's see, because we just have a few minutes left as that we wrap up the show. I don't know if you can speak to perhaps the impact on digital economy, because we're seeing that digital economy is improving or is rising in the country. The Finance Act, a lot of people have online businesses and what have you. There's some things they need to take note of?
Well, Nancy, technological advancement in the last 10 years has been very phenomenal. And I think in a way, it has impacted the way businesses interact with their customers and with regulators. Unfortunately, though, our tax laws, which were mostly enacted from 20, 30 years ago, didn't fit into the current reality. So we don't have the Finance Act coming to plug hole, essentially, because under the OECD model, OECD model Action 1 on base erosion and profit shifting, the first action plan there is how do we ensure that the digital economy is not in a way left out in all of this. And I think what you have in the Finance Act is essentially to redress what the gap is in our current tax law, which essentially makes the taxation of non-resident companies that offer digital services hinged on the physical presence of these guys in Nigeria. And of course, with digital economy, fiscal presence is no longer the end thing. So what the act has done is to basically leverage the OECD Action 1 BEPS to say that we're going to use, for instance, the concept of significant economic presence to create a nexus for non-resident companies taxation in the country. And for that fact, we expect the Minister of Finance, as required under the Finance Act, to come up with the regulations to this effect. So for me, I think having witnessed the boom in the telecoms industry in the last 12 years or so, we expect that to translate into a boom too, of course, in the digital economy for Nigeria. So in a way, the Finance Act also speaks to how digital economy should be dealt with in a country like Nigeria. All we need to do is wait on the minister to issue regulations on how the SCP concept will be practicalized by the Nigerian Tax Authority, and they will begin to realize the benefit by way of tax revenue to the government from digital economy and e-commerce.
Okay, final question. Are there things that businesses should do ordinarily, perhaps to begin to reorganize their businesses or reimagine their businesses as a result of the development we're seeing right now around the tax environment? Are there things that they need to do, MSMEs and some other businesses?
I think what is critical here is that the Finance Act will come into effect hopefully 1st of February. There's still a timeline for businesses to relook their operation, to relook their systems, with a view, for instance, to tweaking it in line with, for instance, the new VAT Act. But beyond that, there's also the excise duty payment, the issues around SCP, and so on and so forth. I think they should begin to talk to their consultants. They should to look in, talk to the right people to ensure that they are prepared for the change which this Finance Act has brought to Nigeria. And I believe strongly that with that, obviously, they would not falter along the line. It is important that they talk to their consultants.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salami. Thank you for joining me. It's been nice having this chat with you today and giving us your perspectives. And I hope that Nigerians have been able to be a bit more enlightened than before. Thank you, Ayo. Say me hi to your colleagues there. I guess they are all watching too.
Pleasure. Nancy, thank you very much.
All right. All right.